How's it going? As you may have seen, I have made 3 videos on the Franklin Armory binary trigger and the Fostech Echo trigger. Due to me being ignorant and not having all the information, there were several things I said that were inaccurate in the first video, and problems that weren't really problems in regards to the Fostech Echo trigger. I have decided to consolidate all 3 videos into one with all the corrected information, some bonus footage, and a more decisive opinion as to which trigger system is superior. One of the mistakes that I'll address first is I, throughout the video, used binary and echo interchangeably between the Fostech and the Franklin, where with just a little bit of research you can find out that the Franklin is a binary trigger and the Fostech is an echo trigger. And not to spoil the surprise, but later in the video I will bring in another weapon system with a similar functionality as it pertains to the trigger, and it is called the double tap trigger, not binary or echo. So in the video, if I refer to one of the triggers incorrectly, just know I do know the difference now. I'm just using old footage. I will try and make all the corrections necessary. Anyway, you can consider this cut of all 3 videos the Snyder cut of my binary or echo trigger system videos. Hopefully you will find it, with all the corrections, informative and enjoyable. Thanks. What's going on, everybody? I've just got a little comparison video for you here today. What I'm comparing are these 2 trigger systems. This is the Fostech Echo trigger system. Similar to the Franklin Armory binary trigger system, it gives you a second mode of fire. So you've got safe, you've got semi, and then you've got echo. And there's no mark on this receiver for that third option there. Now what echo or binary is, obviously if you're in semi, you pull the trigger, the gun goes off. You let go of the trigger, nothing happens. While you're in echo or binary, however, you pull the trigger, the gun goes off, you release the trigger, the gun goes off. Now what I mean by that is right here. Pull, boom. Let go, boom. Now how is that legal? You're firing 2 rounds with 1 trigger pull, right? Well, the actual definition of semi-automatic is a deliberate action that produces 1 round coming out of your barrel. So pulling the trigger, that's a deliberate action. Boom, the gun went off. Holding that trigger down and then releasing it is also a deliberate action. So you boom, boom, 2 deliberate actions. And that is completely legal. I'm a big fan of this idea. I was not at first. I thought it was kind of gimmicky. I thought, well, what if you were in the echo system and you wanted to not fire that second round, but you can press the trigger, then you're going to be in trouble. Actually, if you don't want to fire that second round with the Fostech, I'm not sure if it crosses over to the Franklin because I've only shot the Fostech thus far. You pull the trigger, you're in echo, you pull the trigger, boom, gun goes off. I don't want to shoot that second round. Well, kick the selector back to semi or safe, and the gun won't go off the second time. It simply resets. I do like that. I like that a lot. It makes it a little bit safer in my mind if you didn't want to fire the second round for whatever reason. Now, like I stated a few minutes ago, I've fired the Fostech. I've not fired the Franklin. Big fan of the Fostech. Not a big fan of the Franklin. Well, I won't say not a big fan. They both have their differences. The Fostech, in my opinion, the superior one so far. Like I said, I've not fired this weapon yet, or this trigger system, so I'm going to go out and do that today. So you pop this receiver apart like you would any AR-15. You push on your takedown pin, and then you pull it out this side, gun pops apart. There's that fancy looking Echo Fostech trigger. Now, you might have seen me push this forward. This is a little disconnect. It rides on the bolt carrier. That has to be forward for the weapon to go off. As you might guess, when you push that forward and you try and put the gun back together, your finger's in the way. So you can't have your finger in there. We are safe. If you are in echo and you push this disconnect forward and you compress the trigger, the hammer falls, And if you hold that trigger down, it holds this pin in place. You see if I let go of the disconnect. You see if I let go, it goes back. Push it forward again, hold down the trigger, boom, it's there. It goes back together like it should. Again, I'll demonstrate how that works. You push that disconnect all the way forward, hold down on the trigger, and the receivers just slip right back in the way they belong. See, it's a little tricky, but not bad. Not bad at all. I'll give you one more demonstration, see if I can perfect it here. Push that forward, hold down the trigger, they go right back together. The Franklin Armory, on the other hand, you can just push that takedown pin out like you do on every AR-15, break it apart, put it back together, boom, goes back together. Over here on the Fostech, not a big fan of these goofy looking safety selectors. It's real fat and thick. It is ambi with the stubby one on the right. This one, however, the Franklin has that shorter, more military style looking safety selector, which I like a lot better. That's just my personal preference, so that's not a big deal. That being said, the installation of this trigger I highly prefer over the Franklin. Let me explain that. The Franklin Armory is a multiple piece trigger, and boy is it a pain. When you buy the gun new, it's all self-contained. It's got this little keeper pin in there that replaces the trigger pin. You just slip the trigger right in there, you put your trigger pin in, boom, pushes out that little pin. It's like a charm. The safety selector goes in like any safety selector, no problem. I bought this trigger in a different weapon, did not have that little pin, and I had a heck of a time putting that trigger together and putting it in this weapon. I had to do it twice. I put it in this weapon and I put it in another one, and it was a pain both times. Whereas the Fostech is a simple drop-in system. One thing I don't like about it, and that is putting this piece in. It's actually connected to the safety selector. There's a spring in there. So it's difficult, so they may be a little even for that. You know, if you have the keeper, this one is easier. If you don't have the keeper, this one is easier. I personally prefer putting the Fostech together. You don't require any extra tools or anything or any extra parts beyond what the trigger is itself. There's not a little piece you got to keep track of. And, I mean, who knows, though. I just prefer the Fostech because that's what I started with, and I actually do like it a lot more. Have not fired the Franklin, so that may change here in a few minutes when I go out and fire them both. Anyway, one thing I do not like about the Franklin Armory is it uses a proprietary buffer spring, and I believe a proprietary bolt. Like I said, I've not fired it. I have the bolt it came with, and I have another one. I'm going to check that just to make sure. But I don't like that you have to have this heavier buffer spring. It is a pain. It makes racking the gun a little harder, and it's just, you know, a pain to keep track of a buffer spring if you're like me and you take guns apart a lot. Whereas the Fostech Origins, it's only the trigger and the safety selector that are different. Everything else can be fine. You can swap bolt carriers, you can do whatever you want. And this is another place I have to admit to a mistake. I said that the Fostech uses only civilian bolt carriers, which in reality they will only work with fully automatic bolt carriers. This is just another mistake that I made. Recently discovered that I was mistaken. Anyway, I'm going to take both of these weapons outside, fire them a little bit, and I'll let you know which one I like better. How's it going, guys? I'm out here getting ready to shoot the Fostech Echo trigger system. I'm shooting it through just a Palmetto State lower, Novetzke Afghan Gen 3 upper. Big fan of this upper. I've shot a lot of rounds through it. This one has about 12,000 rounds through it. It's gone without a hitch. I guess we'll go ahead and shoot it. It is safe. I'm going to go ahead and grab a mag. I'm just using USGI steel mags. If any mag is going to malfunction, it's going to be one of these. I'm on safe. Came around. Good to go. I'm going to shoot semi-automatic. No problem. Switch to that third option, which is Echo, and let's see what happens. Bolt didn't lock open. Again, that's probably the magazine. It's just the USGI steel magazine. Ran flawlessly. I'm going to go ahead and drop another mag in it. Let's see how it does. And because, well, this is a lot of fun. Mag in. Drop the bolt. Still good to go. Locked open that time. Ran flawlessly. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's a little hot. It's cold out here today, so you can really tell in this cold weather that heat coming off there. I'm not sure if you can see that vapor or not. Anyway, could not be happier with the functionality of this trigger made by Fostech. I'm going to go ahead and grab the Franklin Armory, give it a few shots, see how it runs. Alrighty guys, you just saw me shoot the Fostech trigger. Completely happy with it. Like I said, I've had a malfunction with it before, but I'm pretty sure it was either user or magazine. I'm going to go ahead and grab the Franklin Armory trigger. It's in this Palmetto AR-15 pistol. Give it a few shots, see how it runs. I'm really excited to see how it does in comparison to the Fostech. I'm going to go ahead, shoot the Franklin, see how it does. As you can see, that's a really stiff buffer spring. Semi. Fires flawlessly. Drop it over into Echo, see how it does. Bolt locked open. I'm not sure if you could see that or not, but I had several malfunctions. It would not fire both. It was shooting one when I pulled back, and then I released, and it didn't fire. And when I pulled again, it did fire. Not really sure what's going on with that. I'm going to go ahead and put another mag in it, see if it does the same thing. Maybe, again, I might have been just stroking the trigger wrong. Not making a smooth stroke from back to forward. But let's see if it does it with the same magazine, same style magazine, with another 30-round mag. Seems to be running better when I go slow. Before it was when I tried to go quick that it malfunctioned. I'm beginning to think, not beginning to think, I know that it was probably me then. I'm going to go ahead and try and see how fast I can empty the magazine and see how it runs. Bolt locked open. Ran fine. Yeah, definitely me that messed up there. Not the weapon, not the trigger. It's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun to shoot. A little more felt recoil with this one, being 10-inch barrel, 10.5-inch barrel instead of the 14.5 like the Noveske. And also, it doesn't have that muzzle brake like the Noveske does. It controls the recoil really, really well. You can see this one move me a little bit more. This one just has a flash hider on it. Alrighty guys, I'm back inside after shooting. I gotta say, the Franklin Armory did better than I thought it would. I thought I was going to have some hiccups because of how complex the trigger system was to put together, but it did fine. It did great, actually. It surpassed my expectations, and I have no complaints. I have no complaints about the functionality of it. It worked extremely, extremely well. The only complaints I have are about the assembly. As I stated before, if you don't have that little pin and that trigger comes apart, it is a headache to put together, but very doable. Between the two, which do I like better and which do I prefer? I definitely prefer the Fostech over the Franklin. I really like the Franklin, but sorry, the Fostech is definitely the winner in my mind. Big fan of this trigger. I like it a lot better. It's just hands down, in my opinion, much better trigger system. It's more consistent, the trigger pulls a lot nicer, and it's a drop-in trigger kit. It is so nice to put in. But if you're not like me and you don't take guns apart and you don't take the trigger out of your gun a lot, that might not mean as much to you. But anyway, that being said, there's no reason in my mind, no reason at all, to choose the Franklin over the Fostech. That being said, I like the Franklin a lot. It's a good trigger, but the Fostech's the dominant. I tell you what, I'm going to keep both of them because they're both a lot of fun. They both fire extremely quick if you know how to operate them. You just have a little bit of knowledge. You can put them both together. Relatively painless. It's just easy to screw up. If you know the pattern, it's easy to do. Anyway, you saw them shoot. You saw how they were in action. They're a lot of fun. If you can get one, get one. I will encourage you to get either one of them. Anyway, so it's really your opinion, and I mean, that's just my opinion, that's my impressions. I just wanted to do this little video because I was interested in this test myself, and I didn't see that anybody else had done it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found this information as useful as I did. And again, thanks for watching. Have a nice rest of your day. What's going on, everybody? I'm just doing a little revisit of the Echo or binary trigger system. That is the Fostech or the Franklin Armory. And I've spent a little bit more time with them now. and I definitely have swapped the Franklin around into a few different setups. I've got it set up in a pistol right now. I've got the Fostech Echo trigger in this AR rifle, which is actually a Novetzke Afghan. The Franklin Armory trigger, I've moved over to this pistol, which has a SB Tactical retractable arm brace. The Franklin I wanted to move around and try in a few different configurations because it operates very differently than the Fostech. The Fostech, it's just a drop-in trigger. You have to put a little disconnect with the safety selector. A little bit difficult to install, but that's it. It doesn't have to do with anything else besides the trigger itself and the safety selector. Whereas the Franklin Armory, you have to replace the buffer spring. Now, I've had a few people tell me that there's a proprietary bolt carrier group, which, if there is, I didn't receive it when I bought the gun, and I've had multiple bolt carriers work in the Franklin Armory, as well as the Fostech, but in specifics, the Franklin Armory, many people have told me you have to have the Franklin Armory bolt for it to work, the bolt carrier, and that's just not the case. I've had a mil-spec bolt carrier work, I had nickel bolt carrier work, and I've also had a chrome bolt carrier work with the Franklin, so I didn't receive a bolt carrier when I bought the trigger. Like I said, I've spent more time with them, and I am fully prepared now to throne the Fostech. In my opinion, it is very, very much better than the Franklin Armory. Like I said, it's just a drop-in trigger. It works with any configuration you want. I've had no issues with it, whereas with the Franklin, though I like it, I've had several issues. It actually, in the setup it has now in this pistol, it won't work properly. It does not work 100% of the time. But it acts like the buffer tube is too short. It's not resetting at the right timing, because it's all about timing with this trigger, because that recoil spring, it's actually a bit stronger, so it pushes the bolt carrier back forward faster, whereas the Fostech, you just need the trigger installed. You don't need to mess with the bolt carrier, you don't need to mess with the buffer spring, nothing. It's just the trigger itself. I've had no problems with this. Franklin's given me a lot of fits. It's a great trigger when it works. And once you get it set up, if you don't like moving, your triggers around, you don't build guns or take them apart, then the Franklin's fine as well. As I stated before, the Fostech is much better. I mean, when your company makes the fastest shotgun in the world, the Origin 12, you kind of got a few things figured out. So I would definitely favor the Fostech over the Franklin Armory. That being said, Franklin Armory is good as well. It just takes a little bit more to get it running the way you want it to. They're really fun. If you can get either of them, go for it. Like I said, I'd go with the Fostech. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about is they make Echo or binary triggers not just for ARs, but they make them for several different weapon systems. They make for the AK, which I would really like to try, and I have not had the opportunity yet to pick one up, but they also make them for the Chris Vector. I almost couldn't believe it when I found out. This gun is a blast by itself. If you don't have one, I mean, I know they're pricey and a little bit hard to find nowadays. I would very much recommend getting one. It is a lot of fun. I know a lot of people have a problem with PCC guns. I absolutely adore this gun. This is another point where my opinion has changed a little bit. I still very much enjoy shooting the Chris Vector. It's a lot of fun, it's very interesting and very unique system. But there are so many other PCCs that are superior in my opinion. I used to consider the Vector as a possible carry carbine, in a bag, because it folds, because it could take the same magazines as your handgun if you carried a Glock, so it would have been a good pair. But after shooting it and shooting it and shooting it, it's not a great gun for defensive use in my opinion, at least the civilian versions of it. The full auto variants would be a lot more viable, and you would feel the advantage to the vectoring system with full auto, and semi-automatic you don't notice it as much as you would as full auto. But I don't really consider the Vector as viable as I used to. I still think it's a great gun. I don't want to talk bad about it at all. It's fun. It's from Call of Duty, which is why a lot of people like it. Regardless, the binary trigger is still a lot of fun in the Vector. But I have a lot of malfunctions. I've never had a malfunction firing in semi-automatic. Still a great gun, still a lot of fun. I still currently own it. I own this same one that's in my video. Anyway, a lot of fun. This one, like I said, has a binary trigger installed. Now, the installation of the binary trigger on the Vector, it's not hard, but it's not quick. It's definitely harder than the ARs. It's more strenuous, it takes more effort and more time. You have to pop a pin out, you have to remove your front sight, pop a pin out on this rail, the pick rail right here on the front. Slide that off. I tapped it off with a rubber mallet. Then there's 3 Allen screws that are exposed when that rail is gone. You loosen all those. You take these 2 Allen screws out, and those 2 screws hold in the shell deflector, which is right here. It comes out, just rolls out this way, and then the trigger actually slides forward. So it's not extremely difficult, but it's not the easiest thing in the world either. Safety selector. Now, one thing I don't like about it is the binary trigger is not select fire. It is simply safe or binary. You can see the red exposed there, which means you're ready to fire, which stinks. It's a very complex trigger, more complex than the AR. So you're kind of stuck in just binary. So if you pull the trigger, you're going to get 2 shots, obviously. Well, you pull the trigger and then release the trigger. Another feature that I really like about the Vector, it's always been something I've wanted for this feature alone, is it takes Glock mags. Any mag that'll fit in a Glock 17 will fit in this weapon. I can demonstrate that. Here's your mag release right here. Pull that sucker out. Grab my 17 that's laying over here. Show that it is safe. Nothing in there. Pop that mag out. Boom. Good to go. I've always found having more than one weapon that takes the same mag very desirable, and it is definitely one of the reasons why I went after the Vector in the first place. And I have to say, it is a lot of fun, especially when you pair it with a 33 round mag. Very cool. But if you want the most fun per round, I definitely recommend for your Vector a 50 round drum. This is actually a Korean-made drum. I've had a bad experience with Korean-made high-capacity magazines before. High-capacity being 50 or 100. I had a 100-round drum made in Korea that I was not a fan of. This I was very impressed with. This was very easy to load. It actually has a ratcheting mechanism built in right here. Very impressed with this. I absolutely recommend that if you have a Vector, get the binary trigger. If you have the binary trigger, get the 55 round mag. They're just a match made in heaven. It works beautifully. In summary, guys, if I'm going to go out and buy a binary trigger for my AR, it's going to be the Fostech. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you maybe learned something. I hope that this helps you if you're on the fence about which binary trigger to put in your AR. Stay safe out there, have fun, and we'll see you next time.